The simplest rule of marketing, much like being a pirate, revolves around a good hook. You need something special about your product which will sell it to the masses. However, as you might expect, this leads to some companies going out of their way to be offensive, sexual, or downright weird in order to get their items in the public eye. And in an industry as insane as comic books, it almost doubles down on these ploys. It's the reason why we have endless crossovers and variants, and also why there's more than a few head-scratching choices behind prints. So let's look at some of the most insane today. With this in mind, I'm a very sick Jules for WhatCulture.com, and these are the 8 most ridiculous comic book gimmicks. Number 8. Blood in the comic. In 1977, Kiss had a deal with Marvel to appear in their upcoming comic, Marvel Comics Super Special. While just having the enormously popular Kiss on the comic would have been enough to drive up sales, the marketing behind this has become infamous. In an effort to help promote the first issue, the idea of adding the blood from each member of Kiss into the red ink was thrown about, meaning that every #1 issue would have trace amounts of real Kiss band blood. As unbelievable as it seems, this was supposedly true. Not only was a photo shoot arranged to show the members of Kiss each pouring a vial of their blood into the ink, but a notary public was on site to confirm the validity. Not sure I'd ever want to touch an issue knowing what antics the band were famed for getting up to now. Number 7. Marvel Superheroes Secret Wars. Secret Wars has a unique place in history. It kicked off the idea of the massive crossover event in comics and has had lasting effects within the Marvel universe. What made it outlandish, though, is how Secret Wars was conceived. The toy company Mattel went to Marvel Comics and said they wanted to make a new line of action figures based on Marvel characters. From there, a story was pieced together to fit the desired action figure line. In any medium, the story should ideally inform the merchandise and not the other way around. Not only was Secret Wars a shameless toy commercial, but the name also has bizarre origins. Focus groups spoke to children to figure out what they thought the coolest words were at the time, and these focus groups found out that kids liked the words secret and wars, and so these got mashed together to create a title that was used as recently as 2016. Still, it doesn't take away from how impactful that storyline was. Number 6. Unlikely crossovers. Crossovers are a tried and true method of storytelling for comic books. Fans love to see their favorite characters interacting with each other. Sometimes different comic book companies will team up and take this idea in a totally different direction. Some crossovers just leave readers scratching their heads, like the 1993 one-shot Godzilla vs. Charles Barkley, where the two had a one-on-one basketball game. Others take surprising turns with pre-established storylines, like when John Connor was killed in the RoboCop/Terminator Kill Human series. However, these both pale in comparison to the Archie crossovers. In the past, this pasty-skinned lad has met up with everyone from the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the Punisher, Kiss, and strangest of all, the Predator. The weirdest bit, though, is that these crossovers are pretty hilarious, and they make a great read for anyone who loves outlandish antics. Number 5. Amalgam Comics. In 1996, Marvel and DC Comics combined their characters to create the Amalgam universe. They mashed up 2 heroes or villains from their respective universes to create a new character that had traits from both. During their brief publication, Amalgam acted as though these characters had years of history behind them. The most popular of these stories was a Wolverine and Batman character, Darkclaw. Darkclaw was the alias of Logan Wayne, a man who saw his family murdered before his very eyes and eventually ended up being experimented on at the Weapon X program. It's as mad as it sounds, and topped it all off with an impossibly impractical and strangely designed costume. Now, this was one character among many, but the idea was so bizarre that many fans chose to ignore the universe. This led to the Amalgam line being disbanded in the same year it was founded, and Marvel filed for bankruptcy soon after. Don't worry though, I think they're doing okay now from what I've heard. Number 4. Kryptonite Rocks. There's always been questionable tie-in merchandise with comic books, but none can compare to Kryptonite Rocks. Advertised in the pages of 70s and 80s comic books for the low price of $2.50, you could be the proud owner of a piece of the planet Krypton, with the added bonus that it also glows in the dark. The ad was shameless, saying that if you purchased the rock, you were a true friend of Superman. And that not only would you be his friend, but you would be keeping the dangerous kryptonite out of his enemies' hands so that they could never destroy the Man of Steel. That's right, if you didn't buy this rock, you're killing Superman. Hilarious, but at the same time very money hungry. Number 3. Soliciting death that never actually sticks. Issues where the characters die sell well, so companies constantly kill and resurrect heroes. Part of the problem here is that everyone knows these issues sell well, so deaths are often advertised months before their release. For the death of Wolverine, Marvel released images within their comics of a different adamantium claw exploding leading up to the event, literally counting down to his demise months in advance. They also called it the death of Wolverine, putting aside any pretenses of what might actually happen. A new version of Wolverine would appear less than a year after this death, something which was reminiscent reminiscent of the death of Superman, who also died and returned within a year. Number 2. Issue 1. The term collector's item is used liberally when it comes to the first issues of a series. It's a sign for readers that this is a ground floor and a good place to grab a comic as it's the beginning of something new. More realistically, a first issue is almost always the start of a new arc for a long-running character. For years, Marvel and DC had series that ran for hundreds of issues. These days, most are lucky to make it further than 20 issues before going back to that coveted number 1. This trend of constantly rebooting and rebranding has recently reached a new level of insanity. The unbeatable Squirrel Girl was rebooted in 2015 after only just 8 issues. The cover of the new number 1 jokingly boasts, "Only our second number 1 this year." But you know, pointing out the absurd nature of constant reboots doesn't actually make it any better. And number 1, enhanced covers. From holographic to embossed covers and every other type of variant, enhanced comic book covers are a huge gimmick. With every company determined to outdo the competition, some worked, while others failed spectacularly. One of the worst offenders was Image Comics in the early 90s. Their comic Bloodstrike number 1 had the most bizarre cover. Claiming that you could rub the blood, the cover came enhanced with fake blood that would disappear when you rubbed it, only to reappear later. Sometimes a gimmick can be fun, and none did it better than Magnor number 1. From the same creative team as Gru, this series unfortunately only lasted 6 issues. Their debut issue was a pop-up cover that unfolded to reveal multiple objects bursting out onto an impressive landscape. Contained inside of a polybag, it even poked fun at the speculator market by having a hysterical young boy crying that the comic was no longer in mint condition now that it was open. And that's our list. Got any other weird comic book gimmicks that were utterly ridiculous? Well, let me know about them in the comments section below. And why not swing by whatculture.com for more news and articles like this every goddamn day. As always, I've been a very sick Jules, you've been awesome, and I'll speak to you soon.